It started as just another 911 call, a paramedic rushing to help someone in distress. But what happened next has left a community stunned, a family devastated, and a homeowners association at the center of a major lawsuit. Imagine this. A medical emergency unfolds inside a quiet gated neighborhood. A paramedic arrives, trained and ready to save a life. But instead of being welcomed, he's blocked at the gate by a security guard who insists he's trespassing. Words are exchanged. Tensions rise. And then, out of nowhere, the guard pulls out a taser. That paramedic was just trying to do his job. His patient, waiting inside the home, never made it. And now, the question everyone is asking, could this death have been prevented? The HOA board, the guard, and the private security company are all facing a lawsuit, accused of putting rules and control above someone's life. This story is more than just a legal case. It's about power, responsibility, and how quickly things can spiral when the wrong decisions are made in critical moments. How did a rescue turn into a confrontation? Who's truly responsible? And what happens when a system meant to keep people safe ends up costing someone their life? Stick around, because this story is far from over. The neighborhood where this happened is part of a private HOA community. Quiet streets, neatly trimmed lawns, and a gate at the entrance meant to keep everything under control. The people living there pay extra for that sense of security. But on that day, it became a barrier to emergency help. According to reports, the paramedic was responding to a critical medical call. A resident inside the home was in distress. Time was everything. But when he got to the gate, the guard refused to let him through without proper clearance. The paramedic explained the urgency. He wasn't some stranger. He was on the job, trying to save a life. But the guard insisted on following HOA protocol. Witnesses say the argument got heated, and instead of calling someone higher up, instead of just opening the gate, the situation escalated. That's when the taser was used. Minutes were lost, minutes that could have made all the difference. Now, the victim's family wants answers. The HOA board, the security guard, and the company that manages the patrol are all being named in the lawsuit. They say the system failed. That protocol took priority over people. And the worst part, this wasn't the first time concerns had been raised about that guard, but nothing was done until it was too late. As the investigation unfolded, more layers of the story began to surface. Residents of the community started speaking out, some defending the guard, saying he was just following protocol, while others shared past incidents where they felt he had acted with unnecessary aggression. One resident even recalled a time when an Uber driver was turned away during a medical emergency, causing a delay. But this time someone died. And now the question isn't just about one decision. It's about a pattern that may have been ignored for too long. The HOA board claims they had no idea things were this serious. But leaked emails suggest otherwise. A few neighbors have written complaints in the past, raising red flags about the way the guard handled people, especially during high-stress situations. Some board members reportedly dismissed those concerns, trusting the private security company they hired. Now they're all under legal fire, accused of negligence and failing to act before it turned deadly. Meanwhile, the paramedic who was tased has stayed mostly silent, but sources say he's emotionally shaken. He's worked emergencies for over a decade, but he never imagined being attacked while trying to help someone. His colleagues are backing him, saying if it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone. And still, no one has explained why backup wasn't called or why help was delayed when every second counted. The tension surrounding the case grew as the media picked up the story. News outlets swarmed the small community, interviewing residents and questioning the HOA's handling of the situation. The public backlash was swift and fierce. People couldn't understand how something as simple as allowing a paramedic to enter could turn into a confrontation. The guard, once a faceless figure, was now the focus of public outrage. His actions, tasing someone trying to save a life, seemed inexcusable to most, yet he remained tight-lipped, waiting for his day in court. The board's defense was shaky at best. They argued that their protocols were in place to protect residents from potential threats. But no one was buying it. How could they justify the guard's actions when he failed to assess the situation properly? They claimed they had no control over the guard's behavior, but emails uncovered by investigative reporters told a different story, ones that hinted at tension between the HOA and the security company about their guard's conduct. As the lawsuit advanced, things only got worse for the HOA. A key witness, a neighbor who had been there during the incident, suddenly changed their story. They claimed the guard had been visibly agitated before the paramedic even arrived. Theories spread about a personal vendetta, or perhaps a deeper problem with the guard's mental state. The clock was ticking, and with every new revelation, the situation seemed to be getting even more complicated. Every twist in the story raised the stakes higher, but the one question that no one could answer yet lingered in the air. Would the truth come out in time to prevent this from happening again? Just when it seemed like the case couldn't get any more complicated, a second bombshell dropped. A security camera, previously thought to be malfunctioning, was discovered to have been recording the entire incident at the gate. The footage was handed over to investigators, but what it revealed shocked everyone. The paramedic had been standing calmly, explaining the urgency of the situation, when the guard had stepped forward, seemingly unprovoked, and tased him. But there was something even more chilling. The guard had been talking into his radio moments before, and it appeared he was being given orders from someone higher up. The footage hinted that the guard might not have acted alone. This raised a troubling new question. Was he just following orders from the HOA board, or worse, were there hidden agendas at play? The idea that someone from within the HOA could have deliberately orchestrated the delay was unsettling. Was it possible that the board had been more involved in the decision to block the paramedic than they had admitted? As investigators began to dig deeper into the security company's contracts with the HOA, they uncovered evidence that suggested the board had been pushing for stricter enforcement of gate policies in the months leading up to the incident. The guard wasn't the only one adhering to these new rules. Other residents came forward, revealing they had been confronted by security personnel over minor issues in the past. It was starting to look less like a simple mistake and more like a dangerous pattern of power abuse. The pressure was mounting, and now, not only was the paramedic's death on the line, but the entire HOA system was under a microscope. What seemed like an isolated incident was rapidly spiraling into something much darker. As the pieces began to fall into place, one thing was clear. Someone had to be held accountable. But who? And how far would they go to protect themselves? As the investigation reached its peak, the truth finally began to surface. The security footage had been reviewed, the emails had been analyzed, and the witness testimonies all lined up. It was clear now, the guard had not acted on his own. The HOA board had, in fact, pushed for stricter enforcement of their gate policies in the weeks leading up to the incident. They had authorized the security company to ensure that no exceptions were made, even when it came to medical emergencies. The board had underestimated the gravity of their decisions, assuming that their control over the community would shield them from the consequences of such a tragedy. The paramedic's family, backed by a team of lawyers, finally had the leverage they needed. The board members were now facing criminal charges for their role in the death, including negligence and wrongful death. But even as the courtroom tension built, there was one final twist no one saw coming. Just as the judge was about to rule on the case, a new witness came forward, an anonymous tipster who revealed an even darker layer to the story. It turned out that the security guard wasn't just following orders. He had been pressured by the HOA board's most powerful member, a board president who had been in personal contact with the guard prior to the incident. The real reason the paramedic was blocked wasn't just about rules. It was because the patient was a whistleblower in an ongoing investigation into the HOA's financial dealings. The board had been trying to cover up a massive embezzlement scheme, and the last thing they wanted was for someone to survive and talk. The revelation hit like a storm. The board president was arrested immediately, and the entire HOA leadership was thrown into chaos. What had seemed like a simple case of poor judgment and protocol now revealed a web of corruption, deception, and greed. The paramedic, the guard, and the victim had all become pawns in a far more sinister game. As the story ended, the fallout continued. The community was torn apart, the truth had been revealed, but the damage was done. Lives were shattered, and the once peaceful neighborhood was left reeling from the consequences of the HOA's actions. The final question lingered in the air. How many other secrets were buried beneath the surface of these communities, waiting to be uncovered? In the wake of the scandal, the community was forever changed. The truth about the HOA's corruption sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The once trusted leaders who had promised safety and security were now behind bars, their faces plastered across news outlets for all to see. The paramedic, still processing the trauma of the incident, found solace knowing that justice had been served, though it would never bring back the life that was lost. His colleagues rallied behind him, but the emotional toll would stay with him for years. For the victim's family, the long battle for justice had finally borne fruit, but the pain of losing a loved one remained a constant shadow. They had hoped the system would protect them, but in the end, it was the fight for truth and accountability that brought justice. The whistleblower's revelation had turned the case from a simple incident of negligence into a story of corporate greed and abuse of power, one that resonated far beyond the confines of the gated neighborhood. As for the residents, trust in the HOA was irreparably damaged. Many felt betrayed by an organization they had once believed was there to protect them. Yet, amid the turmoil, the community came together, realizing that the fight for transparency and fairness would continue long after the headlines faded. This story served as a stark reminder that power, when unchecked, can destroy lives, and that sometimes the darkest secrets are the hardest to uncover.